Let's talk about one of the most debated topics out there, plural marriage in Islamic law. It's an issue with really deep theological roots, for sure, but it also has these profound, real-world consequences for millions of women and children today. So what's really at the heart of this whole debate? Let's break it down.
Our whole investigation today really boils down to this one central question. Do the rules around plural marriage reflect a timeless, divine wisdom, or do they bear the unmistakable fingerprints of the society they came from, 7th century Arabia?
Okay, first things first, we need to get a crucial clarification out of the way. We always hear the word polygamy, right? But the correct term here is actually polygyny. That means one man with multiple wives. And look, this isn't just about being picky with words. It's absolutely central to the entire debate. It immediately highlights this built-in asymmetry. One gender gets the option, while the other gets a strict prohibition.
And that asymmetry, well, that brings us right to the core issue. According to the sources we're looking at, the fundamental problem isn't just about the number of partners. No, it's about the structural imbalance of rights that's built directly into the marriage system itself.
This right here gets to the heart of what's called structural asymmetry. The harm isn't just about, say, a husband failing to divide his time evenly. It's that from day one, a wife's position is designed to be replaceable. Her husband can legally add a co-wife, often without her even having a say, while she has absolutely no equivalent right. This creates what the literature calls a state of chronic insecurity.
So what are the justifications for this practice? Let's be fair and really examine the main arguments that its proponents put forward. And you'll notice they are almost always framed as a kind of social good.
The defense really boils down to two key humanitarian claims. First, the idea that there are simply more women than men in the world, creating a surplus that polygyny is designed to solve. And second, that it provides a vital safety net for widows and orphans who would otherwise be left completely destitute. So let's investigate these claims one by one.
All right, let's start with that demographic argument. This is a testable claim, right? It's empirical. So what does the global data actually say about the ratio of men to women?
Well, this is data straight from the United Nations, and it couldn't be clearer. In every single peak marriage age bracket, we're talking from 15 all the way through 34, men consistently outnumber women. Women only start to outnumber men after age 50, and that's mainly due to their longer life expectancy. And to put a really fine point on it, worldwide, there are about 42 million more males than females. So here's the crucial point. The foundational demographic idea used to justify polygyny isn't just a little weak, it's the exact opposite of reality.
So the conclusion here is pretty much unavoidable. By taking multiple women out of the marriage pool for just one man, polygyny doesn't solve a problem at all. It actually makes the existing surplus of unmarried men even worse, which is a factor that's often linked to social instability. Okay, so the numbers don't add up. Let's move on to our second line of evidence and see how this all builds. What does the historical record, and we're talking according to Islamic sources themselves, reveal about marriage practices back in pre-Islamic Arabia? What was kept and what was thrown out?
You know, when you look at the historical record, based on canonical Islamic sources like Sahih al-Bukhari, it reveals something fascinating. There were all these different kinds of marriage back then, but check this out. The ones where women had significant power, like group polyandry, or the ability to name a child's father, or even owning the marital tent and being able to kick the husband out, those were systematically abolished. Gone. The one form that was preserved and just regulated a bit, you guessed it, male-led polygyny. This really shows that the reforms themselves were deeply, deeply asymmetrical.
So beyond history and demographics, our investigation now has to turn to the scientific literature. I mean, what is the documented human cost of polygyny on the women and children who are actually living inside these structures?
And the data here is just stark. A major 2021 meta-analysis, which is a study of studies, it combined 24 different ones, found that women in polygynous marriages have 2.25 times higher odds of suffering from depression compared to their peers in monogamous marriages. The main cause they identified was jealousy and conflict over resources and affection. And what about the children, the very people this practice claims it's there to protect? Well, one major study across 29 sub-Saharan African countries found that infants in regions with high rates of polygyny face an approximately 42% higher risk of mortality. That directly challenges the whole claim that polygyny is a protective institution for the vulnerable.
This quote is just stunning. A landmark ethnographic review looked at 69 different societies that practice polygyny, and their findings were incredible. The researchers could not find a single case,
not one, where relationships between co-wives could be described as harmonious. This suggests that conflict isn't just an occasional bug in the system, it's a fundamental feature.
So, for our final step, let's examine the scriptural architecture itself. How do all these different lines of evidence, the demographic, the historical, and the scientific, how do they all converge when we look at the foundational texts? Okay, this is the key verse, Quran 4:3. It grants permission for a man to marry up to 4 wives, but you have to notice the critical condition that's attached to it. If you are afraid you will fail to maintain justice, then content yourselves with 1. So justice is the absolute prerequisite.
Now, get this. Just about 100 verses later, in the very same chapter, we get this statement. The original Arabic uses this super emphatic word, lan, which means never. So the text gives permission based on a condition of justice, and then states that fulfilling that condition, at least emotionally, is impossible. This creates a really powerful internal tension, doesn't it?
So why is polyandry, a woman with multiple husbands, forbidden? Well, the classical argument is all about nasab, or certainty of lineage. You have to know who the father is. But the source material points out that an all-knowing, divine lawgiver would have known that DNA testing would one day make this argument completely obsolete. The fact that there's no clause like until paternity can be established is presented as a key piece of evidence that this might be a human, not a divine, limitation.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. What have we seen? The demographic claim of a female surplus, it's factually incorrect. The historical reforms were completely asymmetrical, getting rid of female-empowering marriage forms while preserving male polygyny. The scientific data consistently documents serious harm, and the scriptural permission is tied to a condition that the text itself declares as impossible to meet. So when you lay out all the evidence, from demographics to mental health to the text's own internal logic, the sources really leave us with this one final question. Does this system look like it reflects a divine, timeless plan for all of humanity? Or does it reflect the priorities, the knowledge, and the limitations of the specific time and place in which it was born? That's the question to consider.